Hey there. Today we're talking about who pays for the inspection and who pays for the appraisal in Arizona. This is the honest answer and where nuances can kind of play in. So, two questions I get every single week from Arizona buyers is who pays for the inspection, who pays for the appraisal, and here's the full answer. This is Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix, and this is your East Valley Real Estate Talk. So, these two questions almost always come up in the same conversation: who pays for the inspection and who pays for the appraisal? They're related. They happen almost about the same time in the transaction, and buyers are often surprised to find out that they're responsible for both of those. So it is a cost on the buy side for both of those in a typical offer. And those costs can add up. So let's answer these questions and cover what each one is, how much it costs, and how it all plays together. So if you've seen the closing costs video that we put out, you already know that the full cash requirement to close is higher than most buyers expect. And the inspection and appraisal are two more items in that picture. Let's make sure you can see them clearly before you're under contract. So the first one, the home inspection, what is it, what it costs, and who pays? So the inspection, we're starting there because it comes first in a typical transaction. The home inspection is paid for by the buyer, always. This is there to protect your interests, actually. So if you're buying a home, let's say for $500,000 or $600,000, the cost of this inspection is actually the cost to protect that $500,000 or $600,000 investment. So you hire the inspector, you schedule that inspection, you receive the report, and then you pay that bill directly to the inspector, typically the same day, maybe a day or two before that inspection when it happens. So what do they cost? A standard single family home in the East Valley, like Mesa, Gilbert, Chandler, even Phoenix, expect to pay somewhere between $350 to $500, maybe $600 for a general home inspection. The cost can kind of change depending on the size of the home, the age of the home, certain upgrades, like does it have a pool? Are there, solar panels on that house? Different things like that. Do you need sheds done? Do you need shops done? Do you need, outbuildings or casitas? Things like that can add to that cost. There's also specialty inspections that you can bring in. So we always recommend getting a sewer scope, depending on the age of the home. We recommend termite inspections. Sometimes that general inspection will pop up a problem with an AC unit, and then we want to have an HVAC contractor out there. Sometimes we want a roofing contractor to walk the roof. A lot of these different things can pop up, and pool and spa is another one that you might want to have done. And so depending on which one those sit at, roofing inspections, a lot of our roofing guys will actually do those for free. Your pool stuff is probably like $100 to $200. Your HVAC service report is probably somewhere around $100 to $150. Sewer scopes can run anywhere between $100 to $200 extra. So I would say our typical inspection for one of our buyers, they generally spend sometime or something between $500 and $700 or $800 on all of those inspections to dig in to really make sure that they're protecting their investment. So once you get those results, what happens? You have some options. You can ask the seller to make those repairs before closing. You can ask for a credit so that you get some money to be able to make those repairs after closing. Or you can say, I'm comfortable with the condition of this house. We can move forward. Or you can say, whoa, 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 buddy. This is not what I thought I was buying, and back the heck out to get your earnest money back. So when we're moving on to our appraisal, what's an appraisal? What it costs? Who pays? It's going to be a little bit different. Your appraisal is actually protecting the value of the house that you have under contract for the lender. So you can, if you're doing a cash deal, you can have an appraisal contingency to make sure that there's a separate opinion coming in to protect the value of the house that you're buying. Most of the time with a cash buyer, we don't see those. We only see them with mortgages. So if you're getting a mortgage, the mortgage company is actually the one that hires the appraiser. Nobody can have a say in who that person is. So the listing agent doesn't choose it, the seller doesn't choose it, the buyer doesn't choose it, the buyer's agent doesn't choose it. It's supposed to be a neutral opinion of value for what that house is worth. So they're going to be looking at the condition of the house, the features of the house, any remodeling updates, things like that, and then compare those to any recent sales. We call those comps, but any recent sales in the area that are similar homes to the one that they're appraising, to make sure that that value is there. A typical appraisal we're seeing right now costs anywhere between $550 to almost $700 for a single family home in the East Valley. And you generally pay this as part of your loan process. Most of the time it's upfront and it's outside of the closing. So it's not generally part of what you see on your settlement statement at the end of the day. So the lender's confirmation to do this is a piece of the process that happens before we get to closing. So it's going to be critical to the transaction that this appraiser appraises the house for either whatever you're under contract for or more. So if you get something where, say, you're under contract at 600, that appraisal comes in at 700, you are winning. That is the best situation. You just walked in with $100,000 in equity. Say it's reversed though. Say you have a house that you're under contract at 7 and the appraisal only comes in at 6, you have a $100,000 gap that you now need to bridge. And so the way that that works is the seller can renegotiate that price down. You can agree to pay this piece in cash because the loan will only max out at that $600,000 value. So to get your loan, say you have to put 3 to 5% down for the terms of your loan, you have to, excuse me, you have to do that on that $600,000 number, not the $700,000 number. And then you'd have to bring this in additional cash. We saw that happen all the time during our crazy COVID market in 2020, 2021, 2022. We don't see that happen a whole lot anymore. And we see some of those things get adjusted down. Or if you can't come to terms, the buyer can walk away. But again, those are the two things that kind of happen in the middle where cash is required up front for that inspection first, the appraisal second. There's really only one scenario where a seller pays for that appraisal, and it's generally when the seller thinks the house is worth more than the buyer and the buyer's agent. So if we're listing a house and sometimes a seller wants to stretch the market and they're $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 above where we think it should be, sometimes it pays to have an independent appraiser come in and deliver their opinion of that value. And the seller would pay for that to try to justify what they think that price should be. The way that I see it play out in a contract, if we're doing an offer, is you ask the seller to pay for that appraisal up front. Sometimes it can be reimbursed later as long as that appraisal hits whatever that price is that the seller is hoping for. So if it comes in and by the grace of God, we hit whatever that number was, somebody else thought it was worth that. Now the buyer will use that and then we can go and reimburse it. If the seller is paying for that appraisal before we go under contract, it's not one that the buyer can then transfer and use when they're under contract. It would be an entirely new appraisal that would be needed once that offer comes through. So it does get a little bit tricky trying to figure out the way to do that and the way to justify prices. The typical way that appraisals come in, again, is once the house is under contract and we have a buyer and a lender assigned and moving forward. So with that stuff happening, again, if a seller is paying for that appraisal and we're under contract and going like that, you can use that all day long. But most of the time, if a seller is paying for it, it's ahead of the time trying to figure out a list price for everything. So how inspections and appraisal results affect the position that you're negotiating things, it really is going to depend on what house it is, what the market conditions are, all of the different things, or how far apart things are. But generally in those two pieces, the inspection for sure is the easiest way to get out of a contract. Appraisals can be a little bit trickier, and not every inspection is, deal breaking, and not every appraisal is going to come in perfectly or come in low. And so it really just depends on each market. We've seen a couple of low appraisals this year, not a ton though. Most of them are coming in pretty dang close. So that's exciting. Generally speaking, we do a lot of homework on our contracts when we're writing offers to make sure that we're not going to have appraisal problems, because we don't think that that's something that you should just be paying for willy-nilly with no chance, to get those numbers to match. We want those numbers to match so that we can move through, secure a loan, make this as easy and stress-free as we possibly can. So if you're looking and getting ready to buy a home in the East Valley and you understand the full picture before you're under contract, reach out to us, send me an email, chelsea@andersonsignature.com. Excuse me. Or Call or text 602-748-6136. Again, I'm Chelsea Anderson with the Anderson Signature Team at Keller Williams Realty Phoenix. And then, of course, drop the word inspect in the comments and we'll send you over a buyer's due diligence checklist, what to look for, what questions to ask, and how to use an inspection period to protect yourself in our Arizona real estate contract. Of course, subscribe for more real answers to your real buyer questions, and we will do our best to answer.